This has been paused for too long, so I'm gonna react to what has been said.
Alright, let's get right into it. Logan Paul walking into WWE was always going to be controversial, but nobody quite anticipated the level of visceral hatred that would bubble up from the wrestling community when he first stepped through those ropes. This wasn't just your typical heel heat where fans boo because they're supposed to. This was something deeper, something more personal, and it continues to fester even as he racks up increasingly impressive performances inside the squared circle. The fundamental issue starts with opportunity cost. Wrestling is built on a pyramid structure where talent spends years, sometimes decades, grinding through independent promotions, working small venues for pizza money, sleeping in cars between shows, and sacrificing their bodies night after night with the hope of maybe, just maybe, catching a break. These wrestlers dedicate their entire lives to perfecting their craft. They study tape, they train until their bodies give out, they work through injuries that would sideline normal people, and they do it all for the love of the business and the dream of making it to the biggest stage. Then Logan Paul shows up with his millions of YouTube subscribers and immediately gets slotted into premium positions that other wrestlers would literally sacrifice years of their careers to achieve. His debut at WrestleMania wasn't just any match. WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling, the one show where careers are made and legacies are cemented. Getting a WrestleMania match is the pinnacle achievement for most wrestlers. Some of the most talented performers on the roster go years without getting a WrestleMania spot. Yet Logan Paul, with zero prior wrestling experience at that point beyond a brief appearance at an earlier event, got to team with The Miz at WrestleMania. The audacity of that booking decision sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. Here was someone who hadn't paid his dues, who hadn't worked the house show circuit, who hadn't spent years perfecting his craft in front of small crowds, getting handed what others had spent their entire lives working toward. What made it worse was the realization that this wasn't a one-time publicity stunt. WWE clearly saw value in Logan Paul beyond a single appearance. He was given a contract, not as some novelty act to pop a rating and disappear, but as a legitimate part of the roster. The company invested in him, promoted him, and positioned him in ways that full-time wrestlers could only dream of. This created an immediate divide because it reinforced what many fans already suspected, that WWE values celebrity and social media reach over wrestling
100%.
ability and dedication to the craft. The part-time nature of his schedule became a massive sticking point. Logan Paul appears sporadically, working maybe a handful of matches per year, yet when he does show up, he's immediately inserted into major programs with top stars. He's faced Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Championship. He's challenged for the United States Championship. He's been given feuds with established names and television time that could have gone to developing young talent or showcasing wrestlers who are there every single week. The contrast is stark and frustrating for fans who watch dedicated performers grind away on weekly television, putting their bodies on the line show after show, only to see a part-timer swoop in and get opportunities they'll never receive. This isn't just about jealousy or gatekeeping. It's about the fundamental structure of how wrestling is supposed to work. The business has always had an unwritten code about paying dues and earning respect. You start at the bottom, you learn from veterans, you make mistakes in front of small crowds where the stakes are lower, and you gradually work your way up as you improve and prove yourself. Logan Paul bypassed all of that. His path to the top was paved by his existing fame and social media following, not by years of development and growth within the wrestling system. To hardcore fans who understand and respect that traditional structure, this feels like a violation of everything the business is supposed to stand for. The money aspect adds another layer of resentment. Logan Paul is undoubtedly getting paid substantial amounts for his appearances. WWE doesn't hand out premium spots without corresponding premium paychecks, especially to someone with his negotiating leverage. That money comes from the same pot that pays the full-time roster. When a company is willing to pay massive sums to a part-timer for a few appearances while full-time wrestlers are fighting for raises and better contracts, it creates understandable bitterness. Wrestlers see their value diminished when an outsider can command more money for less work simply because of fame generated outside the wrestling industry. Then there's the championship situation. Logan Paul held the United States Championship for an extended period, which meant that belt wasn't available for the full-time roster to compete for. Championships in wrestling serve multiple purposes beyond just being props. They create storylines, they elevate talent, they give wrestlers something to fight for, and fans something to invest in. When a part-timer holds a championship, it effectively removes that title from regular circulation. The United States Championship wasn't being defended regularly because Logan Paul wasn't around regularly. Full-time wrestlers who could have been building their profiles through title programs were left without that opportunity because the belt was tied up with someone who had other commitments and priorities outside of wrestling. The defense of his title reign was minimal compared to what's expected of full-time champions. Traditional champions work television shows, house shows, and pay-per-view events defending their titles and building feuds. Logan Paul defended sporadically, appearing only for major shows, which made the championship feel less important. Championships are are supposed to be fought over, defended with pride, and treated as the most important thing in a wrestler's career. When a part-timer holds a belt and doesn't defend it regularly, it diminishes the prestige of that championship and makes it feel like a prop rather than a prize worth fighting for. The spot monkey criticism is particularly interesting because it reveals a deeper divide in how people view wrestling. Logan Paul's matches are filled with spectacular moments, high-flying moves, and visually impressive sequences that look great on highlight reels. He's athletic, he commits to the moves, and he clearly puts effort into making his matches exciting. However, wrestling purists argue that stringing together impressive spots doesn't make you a great wrestler. Real wrestling is about storytelling, psychology, selling, ring awareness, and the ability to work different styles with different opponents. It's about knowing when to slow down, when to let a moment breathe, when to sell an injury to make it meaningful. Logan Paul's matches often feel like greatest hits compilations rather than cohesive stories, and that bothers fans who value the art of wrestling beyond just athletic spectacle. The learning curve argument also rings hollow to many fans. Yes, Logan Paul has improved and has shown more aptitude than many expected. He takes the physical risks, he executes moves cleanly, and he doesn't completely embarrass himself in the ring. But so what? There are wrestlers on the roster who've been working for years, who understand every nuance of ring psychology, who can work any style with any opponent, who can call matches on the fly and adapt to crowd reactions, and they're stuck in catering while Logan Paul gets main event programs. Being good for a celebrity isn't good enough when you're taking spots from people who are legitimately great at their profession. The promotional push behind Logan Paul felt particularly egregious to fans. WWE's marketing machine went into overdrive, presenting him as a legitimate main event star. Commentary teams were instructed to put him over as a serious competitor. Video packages were produced highlighting his athletic background and framing him as someone who belonged at the top of the card. This wasn't subtle or organic. It was a clear corporate directive to manufacture a star using existing fame rather than building one through traditional means. Fans can smell manufactured pushes, and they typically reject them, especially when that push comes at the expense of wrestlers they've invested years in following. The comparison to other celebrity appearances in wrestling history is inevitable, but not particularly favorable for Logan Paul. Wrestling has a long history of celebrity involvement, from Mike Tyson to Floyd Mayweather to Bad Bunny. The difference is that most celebrity appearances were positioned as special attractions rather than as regular roster members taking up championship spots.
Sorry, I thought I heard someone talking.
WWE appearances because he showed genuine respect for the business, worked hard to make his matches good, and didn't overstay his welcome. He came in, did his thing, and left without monopolizing television time or championship opportunities. Logan Paul, by contrast, has inserted himself into the regular roster structure while maintaining his part-time status, creating a situation where he gets all the benefits of being a featured star without the responsibilities that come with it. The social media integration of Logan Paul's wrestling career has been another source of friction. WWE clearly sees value in his ability to generate social media engagement and bring his followers into the WWE.
No, I'm not mad. There's a Bills on. I don't drink, but
AC/DC back live. Power Up Tour.
Ecosystem. Every Logan Paul appearance becomes a social media event with clips going viral and reaching audiences that traditional wrestling might not penetrate. From a business perspective, this makes perfect sense. From a fan perspective, it feels like the company is prioritizing viral moments and social media metrics over actual wrestling quality and fan satisfaction. It's the entertainment over wrestling argument manifested in a single person. The booking decisions surrounding Logan Paul have been particularly frustrating because they often defy internal logic. Wrestling is supposed to operate on some level of kayfabe consistency, where actions have consequences.
I hear someone here talk.
And storylines make sense within the established universe. Logan Paul shows up whenever he feels like it, gets immediately inserted into major programs regardless of what happened the last time he appeared, and faces minimal consequences for his absences. This breaks the internal consistency that makes wrestling compelling. If a full-time wrestler disappeared for months and then returned expecting an immediate title shot, fans would reject it as nonsensical. Logan Paul does exactly that and gets rewarded for it. The training and preparation argument also falls flat when examined closely. Yes, Logan Paul has trained and prepared for his matches. He's worked with coaches and put in gym time, but that's the bare minimum expectation. Every single wrestler on the roster trains constantly. They're in the gym, they're in the ring, they're studying tape, they're working on their craft continuously. Logan Paul trains specifically for his scheduled appearances while maintaining his other business ventures and content creation. He's not living the wrestler lifestyle, he's not dealing with the accumulated wear and tear that comes from working hundreds of matches per year, and he's not making the same sacrifices that full-time wrestlers make. Getting credit for doing the basic preparation necessary to not injure yourself or others isn't praiseworthy when everyone else is doing exponentially more. The mentor relationship with The Miz added an interesting wrinkle, but ultimately didn't help Logan Paul's standing with hardcore fans. The Miz himself is a polarizing figure who came from reality television and spent years overcoming skepticism about whether he was a real wrestler. Having The Miz as Logan Paul's guide and ally created a storyline connection, but also reinforced the idea that Logan Paul was following a similar trajectory of using outside fame to shortcut into wrestling success. When they eventually turned on each other, it provided some good television, but it didn't change the fundamental dynamic of Logan Paul being an outsider given preferential treatment. What makes the Logan Paul situation particularly intractable is that from WWE's perspective, he's been a success. His matches generally deliver, he generates significant media attention, he brings new eyeballs to the product, and he doesn't embarrass the company with poor performances. The metrics that WWE cares about, social media engagement, mainstream media coverage, attracting younger demographics, all point toward Logan Paul being a valuable asset worth continuing to feature. The disconnect is that the metrics hardcore wrestling fans care about, respect for the business, opportunity distribution, championship prestige, storytelling quality, all point toward Logan Paul being a problem that needs to be addressed. These two perspectives are fundamentally incompatible, which means the tension isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, no doubt. It's called money. Okay, well, that's all for today. I'll react to one more thing later on, maybe. But see you soon.